Tomorrow's special report, we're counting down to the first race of the new Formula One season. The Bahrain Grand Prix was cancelled last year due to political unrest, but it's scheduled to return to the circuit in 2012.
Bahrain is a difficult topic. I think that, as a race team, we enter a championship that's calendar is dictated by the FIA and the commercial rights holder, and we rely on their judgment. They're much closer to the issues. They're much closer to the politics that surround this issue. And at the end of the day, we trust their judgment. If there's a race, we'll be there. If not, then we'll trust their judgment, and as a governing body, it's their responsibility, obviously, to make the right calls.
And joining us in the studio tomorrow night will be Lotus team principal Eric Boulier and Force India boss Robert Fernley.
Meanwhile, it's the final day of testing in Barcelona today. Reigning world champion Sebastian Vettel will get his chance to try out the upgraded Red Bull after his teammate Mark Webber was 8th fastest.
It was all eyes on Red Bull on day 3. Word was out that their new chassis had arrived overnight, complete with a new exhaust layout.
Inevitably there's a few changes, but sometimes it's the changes that you don't see that make some of the bigger differences. So, Formula One, that's part of the excitement of it. Is it's constantly evolving. The car's constantly a prototype that is constantly evolving.
Mark Webber was the first to experience the upgrades, but found one problem hadn't been solved.
Mark, you said in Jerez and also after the first week in Barcelona, you're still having a bit of problems with loss of grip at the rear. Have these upgrades that came today solved that?
No, we have work to do still. So I think coming from last year's regulations, it's normal that the cars are very, very different. So there's always areas to improve, and that's what we've got to keep doing.
The Sauber topped the timesheets again, with Sergio Perez completing 114 laps. Second fastest was the McLaren, who'd been adding their own upgrades all week. But with a new front wing and nose, it meant much less track time for Jenson Button.
I feel good. For the limited running I did, it's very tricky when you put a new package on the car because you obviously know what it does, but you're never quite sure if you've got the right setup for it. So it takes a little bit of time to get the mechanical setup right and the aero setup right.
The new Red Bull upgrades on a car already seen as the one to beat has given all the teams something to think about. For the final day of testing, before the first race in 2 weeks' time, the reigning world champion will have his chance to see what the RB8 can do now. Rachel Brooks, Sky Sports, Barcelona.
Tomorrow's
Right, now it is the final day of testing over in Barcelona for the new Formula One season. We can go live to Rachel Brooks, who is at the circuit. Rachel.
Yes, you're right, it is the final day. This is it. It's the last day that these teams will have their cars out on a track before that first race in Melbourne, which is 2 weeks today. It's getting ever closer. And this morning we were in the paddock and just taking a wander along, and we saw Lewis Hamilton come out of his motorhome. And as he came down the steps, there were fans waiting for him. They wanted photos, they wanted autographs from him. And he signed those for him, posed for a few photos as well. And McLaren have been going pretty well here. Everyone seems to think they've got a pretty decent car. They may have closed the gap on Red Bull. They've been adding their upgrades all week and still doing some more yesterday. And Jenson Button told us he had a hydraulic problem that seemed to have been sorted, but not as much track time as he'd have liked, so Lewis will be out today. And then we saw Fernando Alonso come out of the Ferrari motorhome. Very different body language from him. Now Ferrari, everyone seems to think at the moment, are struggling a bit, maybe back as far down as 4th or 5th in the pecking order here, which is not what they want. And seeing him run from the motorhome or jog from the motorhome straight into the garage, he was very, very keen to get out on the track this morning and just see what this Ferrari can do. Well, I'm joined now by somebody who's also been testing this week, as it were. It's Paul Hembury, who's the motorsport director from Pirelli. And Paul, we talk about the cars and the teams testing, but the tyres have been tested as well.
Yeah, finally we get to see the cars, as everybody else has been waiting to see the final evolutions, and it's quite well documented. Red Bull and McLaren have only turned up really yesterday with, I guess, a package that's going to be close to what we'll see in Melbourne. Even then, I think there'll still be some more changes before they get to Melbourne, and it's enabled us to get a better understanding of where we're going to be as well. Because we run around, or we've been running around in a Toyota from 2009, and it's a bit different than seeing the 2012 cars.
And what's the feedback been like from the team here?
Well, I have to say, very favourable. I mean, if one thing's changed this year, it's the balance of the cars. They've had more time to design the cars around our tyres. I mean, last year, of course, it was a big rush for everybody. But this year, the general feedback from the drivers are the cars are much better balanced. They've got more rear grip from the new tyre, which seems to please a lot of the drivers more. Last year we were very rear tyre limited, and what I mean by that is it's the rear tyre that was wearing out the quickest on the car, and that was forcing the tyre changes. It's probably going to be more front tyre related this year, that's going to force the changes.
We saw a lack of running in Q3 in the third qualifying session last year, and I know that was one of your aims, to try and get more cars out on the track in Q3 this year. Do you think you've achieved that? Have the teams got the tyres they can do that?
I think that's more difficult. I think there's always going to be an issue with teams in Q2, or would normally be in Q2 and maybe scrape into Q3, will want to change, and they'll hold on to a set of tyres for the race. We'd still love to see some qualifying tyres. We've never sort of been shy about saying that. The teams feel that the strategy element of holding on to the tyres is interesting as well. It adds intrigue. I think at the end of the day, it's the fans that have to decide. We're open anyway to find the solution if it does become a major issue.
Do you think then we will see teams sitting in the garage in Q3?
I think that's still a possibility, yeah, sure.
And what else have you learnt from this test? We heard from Jensen yesterday, he thought Red Bull and Ferrari still struggling a little bit getting to grips with the tyres here. Have you seen much of that yourself out on track?
There's been a little bit of variation, and you've heard some of the comments from the drivers saying they're trying to work out whether they need to save the tyres early on in the stint, which gives them maybe less degradation over the full. And degradation is the time you lose per lap, and that's very important when you're trying to hold on for a three-stop strategy. If you burn up your tyres too quickly, you'll be losing time as you come just before that tyre change. So, yeah, his comment's right, but we don't know the fuel loads of all the cars. We do our analysis Monday and Tuesday when they finally give us all the full data, and then we can do a proper simulation. But like everybody else, we don't know all the information, and maybe that would change when we've got all the data.
If you do get feedback from the teams here and it is very negative towards a certain tyre, what changes can you make? Can you make any during the season? Can you go to a different compound, or would you just maybe select a different tyre for a different race?
Well, you have two choices. You can change your nomination. You can actually change what you've already said you might take to a certain race. An alternative is to actually change the tyre itself, and we have a number of products ready to go if need be. And we also continue testing. We've got 5 test sessions planned for this year, and most of that is aimed already for 2013, of course. But if we need to make a change this season, then of course we will do.
And just finally, we've seen some unmarked tyres going around. It caused a lot of chat around here and around the paddock, a lot of speculation, but there is nothing sinister about it.
No, it was surprising. Everyone was so interested in these unmarked tyres, if they were sort of some special tyres. We said they were just special ones for Ferrari, but that didn't go down too well. No, they're really, it's a production backup. It's we have a factory in Turkey, an amazing factory in Turkey. But we have to be responsible as a company and ensure that if something happens, natural disaster, earthquakes have happened in Turkey in the past. So we have another production source in the worst case scenario, and the tyres performed perfectly. There was no difference between the two production sources, which, to be honest, was our objective to find out. And we have to be pleased and proud that we've managed to achieve that so quickly as well.
All right, well, Paul, thanks very much for joining us this morning. As you can hear, the cars are out on the track. The Sauber trucks are behind me, and they led the timesheet yesterday. Sergio Perez in the Sauber, quickest on the track. We don't know fuel loads, though. We don't know what sort of setup they were running, and this really is it. Less than 8 hours now for these teams to find out what these cars can do before they take to the track in Melbourne, and the first race of the season 2 weeks today.
Thank you very much.
2 weeks today, the Formula One season gets underway, so this is one final chance for those teams to test their cars out on track in Barcelona. So let's cross live to Rachel Brooks at the circuit. Rachel, what's the very, very latest where you are? How are those teams looking?
Well, David, Fernando Alonso has just put in the fastest lap here at the Circuit de Catalunya, but as we always say, what can you read into the times, really? It's not until you get out into Melbourne and they really, really push those cars in qualifying. Even in practice, some of the teams might hold back the odd trick or two, so we won't know until then. He has put in a quick lap this morning. A lot of the talk has been about Ferrari. The drivers aren't allowed to talk to the media now this week in Barcelona. In Italy, they're saying this is because the drivers aren't happy and they are worried what they're going to say, but we've just spoken to their Director of Communications, and you'll be hearing that interview shortly from him on what is going on with Ferrari at the moment. But I'm joined now by somebody who is very excited right now, cannot wait for that first race of the season in 2 weeks' time, and you'll have seen him at Loftus Road yesterday. Tony Fernandes joins me. Tony, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I have to ask you, how does it feel as a boss of a Formula One team? You were walking through the paddock. You mentioned to me you were sat on the pit wall yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, just now actually, it's seeing our team with the new name, seeing how much we've progressed. My life is so on the go. Once in a while, you get a moment to reflect, and looking at the team and how we progressed, it was a proud moment for me to sit back and say, "Wow, in 2 years we've achieved all of this," and was feeling quite good about it.
What's the feedback been like from the team as to the week they've had here?
Well, probably our best test. I think we even surprised ourselves yesterday, putting in the 1:22.6. Heikki's very upbeat. Had a good chat with him. Vitaly, I have to say, I'm really thrilled with him in the team. He's so positive. He's really excited. He's learning lots, and he's going to be a good addition. So, moving in the right direction. Lots to do, but moving in the right direction.
He joined the team late, only coming into the second test. Was that difficult? Has it set him back at all, or is he up to speed, do you think?
No, he's obviously a little bit behind. But I mean, this is our best ever test anyway. We've never had so many laps. In prior tests, we've had lots of reliability issues, etc. So, and he has done 2 seasons before. So, but he is behind the curve. But hopefully we'll get him up. We'll have a good run today and get enough laps. He's got a seat in. He's obviously a bigger lad than Heikki. So we didn't have the right seat for him, and that's come in, so he's much happier.
It's I mean, from being at the other test, I know you've just arrived here at the circuit this morning, but it does seem as though that midfield or anything sort of between the top 3, 4, 5 are very, very close together this season. Is that how you've been reading it as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a much tighter season. I think you've picked a good season to start broadcasting. I think there's going to be good racing, and I think there's going to be a lot of battles in the midfield as well, which will make the racing much more exciting.
With your commitments to football, how many races are you going to be able to get to this season?
Well, it helps that I work for an airline. So, I hope to get to at least half of them. I can do most of the Asian races, obviously, and try and do as many of the European races.
In the stands at Loftus Road yesterday and in the pubs before the match as well, how was your day yesterday?
It was a fantastic day. I mean, would have been nice to have got 3 points, but went to a couple of the pubs. Fans were great. Very appreciative. Poured a couple of pints. Didn't know QPR had its own ale actually, which was very nice. And then went off to the loft. And it's been a while since I've gone through the turnstiles, and I wanted to experience that again. I wanted to see what it was like with fans, and also they're my customers, to see whether they had problems. Just in fact on the physical side of the business, going through the turnstiles, the operations, the bars, etc. So that was good to get back there, and it was great being with the fans.
We know the media facilities are good. We always get very well looked after at QPR, but what did you find as a fan on the day? Is there anything you'd like to change from what you saw yesterday?
Well, lots. I'm not going to tell Sky News that. but I think overall our facilities are small, and hopefully we can improve them in the next year or two. But obviously we have a medium-term plan, which is to try and get a better stadium. But I think the key thing that I found was you don't get a sense when you're in the director's box. The atmosphere is fantastic, and whatever we do going forward, we can't lose that wonderful atmosphere that Loftus Road has got. And that was really special. I picked a great position. I was right in front of Bobby Zamora. Getting a goal. I was also right in front of the, where we had a great chance and we hit the post. So all in all, it was a fantastic day.
The football on the pitch yesterday, coming back from a goal down, showed a lot of spirit. That's what you're looking for, essentially, isn't it? To make sure you are out of that bottom 3 come May.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key was, I think everyone fought, and I think to the fans, what I was trying to tell the fans, because there was concern that we had highly paid players, and I think that's nothing further from the truth, actually, because what the fans have forgotten is that for the last 3 games we've had 10 men on the pitch, and against Fulham with 10 men they gave them a good game in the second half. So I think there's nothing wrong with the commitment's there, the heart is there. But yesterday also, Everton's a damn good side. They've been in the Premier League for a long time, and we've just come up. We showed a lot of strength and character to come back. It's what I love to see, and I think the players were very proud of what they achieved, and hopefully this is the start of moving forward.
Have you seen enough to convince you you'll be in the Premier League next season?
Well, I'm not expert enough to say that, and I think that's Mark's role. On paper, we've got a good squad. On paper, I think we can play with anyone. But you and all your viewers know football is a strange game. It's different here. There's more predictability in Formula One. In football, anything can happen. So let's hope the gods are smiling on us.
I like that there's more predictability in Formula One. Where do you think Cater will be at the end of the season then? I need a position from you.
I'm not going to commit that, but I think I'm still 10th is still my target. Realistically, look, 2 years ago we had nothing, and if we can maintain that 10th, and every year inch closer and closer, and I think we really have made that step forward. And if we can get in the midfield, really racing by the middle of the season, and getting a couple of points, then that would be a great season for us.
Well, Tony, thanks very much for joining us today. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, we've got the sun is out, brought it from Loftus Road, and hope we keep the rain out so Vitali gets lots of laps.
Right, well, we'll keep an eye on his racing today, or his at least practice runs and race simulations today. That's what the teams are doing. They're doing some sort of qualifying equivalent runs this morning, and then some race simulations this afternoon, and we'll be here to keep an eye on all of them.
Thanks very much indeed, Rachel. Do you know, the 2012 Formula One season starts in 2 weeks' time, and one of the big names, Ferrari, have admitted they are behind schedule and they're not happy ahead of the new campaign. It's been agreed that their drivers, Felipe Massa and Fernando Alonso, won't talk to the media about their problems.
It's not that we imposed the driver not to talk. We decided together it would have been better to stay quiet on the driver's side, mostly because it is very difficult now to assess exactly where every team is compared to each other. And we know very well how much the driver's words can be emphasized in a way or another. So at the moment, it's still a lot of work in progress. So we thought really it would have been better for the team together to take this decision. We missed all the development job that you usually do during the testing, the pre-season testing, which means working on the setup, which means trying to find out all the fine-tuning which can help to pull out the best performance of the package you have. This is a job we did only here for, let's say, a couple of half days. Today we will focus more or less 100% on that, but it's clear that we are behind the schedule. Therefore, we cannot be happy. How big is our unhappiness? Honestly, we will find out only in Melbourne after qualifying.
Is it a nervous couple of weeks now for Ferrari until the race?
I don't want to say nervous, for sure intense.
It is the final day of testing in Barcelona for the new Formula One season. Let's go live to Rachel Brooks, who is in Barcelona for us. Rachel.
Yes, Natalie, it is the final bit of testing. We've just got 2.5 hours, more or less, left now here in Barcelona before the cars go back into the garages and they are packed off to Melbourne for the first race of the season. I'm joined now by the Deputy Team Principal of the Force India team, Robert Fernley. And Robert, we can hear the cars out now, and I understand you're running a race simulation this afternoon. How's it going?
All going very, very well. It's the second one this week. Paul did one yesterday and that was also successful, so hopefully we can call it a wrap.
Is this where you wanted to be at this point in the week? Has it been a successful week for you?
We'd always like to be faster, but it's okay.
And how is the car running at the moment? Paul was in it yesterday, Nico's in it today. Any problems that you're going to have to get sorted by Melbourne?
No, I think we've got all the data we need. It's now time for the engineers to sift through that for the next week and ready for Melbourne.
And a lot of teams brought their upgrades here. Have you put all your upgrades on now? Is that it?
We still have a little left for Australia, but it's minor.
And a lot of the teams say you won't know till qualifying in Melbourne. Even in practice, teams are going to hold back. Are you going to let us know any of your plans at all?
No, I think you've got the same problems. I think until we actually do a full qualification process, you'll never know where we are.
The tyres have been discussed quite a bit actually, and some people are saying they think there's only one performance lap and some of the teams won't make Q3 in the races again this season. Are you one of the teams that's got to consider that?
I think that what will happen this time is I think it's almost going to be Monaco at every race. So it may be that you may have the pace, but you just can't get the lap.
So there's going to be I think there's going to be a whole lot of differences between what we did last year and what we do this year. So I think it's going to be very interesting.
What has been evident from the weeks of testing is that the teams in the midfield towards the end seem to all be bunching together a lot more closely than they were last season. Is that how you see it?
Yes, very much so. I mean, we've always said it's going to be very, very competitive in the midfield. So assuming the top four stay where they are, I think the battle for sort of fifth is going to be huge.
Have you had any surprises this week? Any other teams surprised you at all?
No, not really. I think there's still something more to come out of Red Bull, still some more to come out of McLaren. Mercedes we're not 100% sure of either, so it'll all come out in Melbourne.
And your target for the season, I mean, we've talked to you before, it's that you're the top end of that midfield, you're chasing those top three closely. Realistically, a target for you?
Well, I think the target is set for us by Vijay, and that's fifth, and we're not changing from that.
Robert, thank you very much for joining us. All the best for the rest of your race simulation this afternoon. We look forward to seeing you again in Melbourne, of course. So that is what most of the teams are doing this afternoon. There are a couple that aren't right now. We heard from Sebastian Vettel, and he's had problems with the car this morning. First, it was a front wing. They had a problem when he went over a curb, and there was also a problem with the gearbox later on. So Red Bull a little bit behind today, and Ferrari also behind. We've heard about their problems, the new exhaust they've put on, that they aren't able to do the testing they would like here at the moment, and they are behind the other teams, as they admitted. But it's an interesting final afternoon here in Barcelona, and join us later to find out exactly how we've finished up this week.
Thank you. Today marks the final day of testing in Barcelona before the first race of this season in Melbourne a fortnight today. McLaren are putting their car through its final paces on the track. And earlier this morning, former world champion Lewis Hamilton was happy to sign autographs in the paddock before he went out onto the track. But the two-time champion Sebastian Vettel wasn't too happy with his time on the track.
So far not so good, because obviously would love to be on the circuit more, but this morning I had an issue with the front wing. I went off track and broke the front wing, so had to come in, and then took quite a while to get back out, and then just before lunch we suffered a problem with the gearbox, so now we've got to fix it and get back out after lunch.
Have you had a chance to feel if this new rear end is working like you want it to?
It wouldn't be fair yet to judge it, because I hadn't enough laps on the track yet with the new parts. So I think yesterday was quite a decent step and a good day for Mark. So hopefully I get some more laps in the afternoon.
Less than a fortnight now to wait for the new Formula One season, and the teams have been putting the finishing touches to their cars in Barcelona. Rachel Brooks has the latest for us.
Yes, that's it now. The teams have done all they can. They finished on the track here in Barcelona, and now it's onwards and upwards to Melbourne, where we really will find out who is where on the grid. And I'm joined now by Ted Kravitz from Sky Sports F1 HD. And Ted, when we look at today, it kind of almost sums up testing in the drama and the suspense, and really just trying to see who is where right now.
Yeah, it was a strange final day, notably really for Sebastian Vettel, who had a problem with his front wing in the morning, and then a gearbox problem which kept him in the garage until right at the end. He was about to go out, and then we had a stoppage for Vitaly Petrov's Caterham. Once that was cleared, it was all hands to the deck in the Red Bull garage as they tried to get Vettel out for a final run. They did manage that, but really Red Bull won't have managed to learn very much from today at all. And that will be a disappointment for them, because they put this new exhaust package, this new whole back end on their car, and Sebastian Vettel really doesn't know how it works.
And in terms of McLaren, Jensen yesterday had a frustrating day with problems. How was Lewis's day?
Well, a frustrating end to Lewis Hamilton's day, because as you can see, the garage door is down, and they too didn't make it out for a last run at the end after that stoppage for the Caterham. So Lewis Hamilton, I think, will go away a little frustrated they didn't manage to get well up the timesheets. But McLaren seem to be there or thereabouts. They know that they're not potentially as quick as Red Bull, but they think when they get to Australia, if they can dial the car in successfully, if they can make the tyres work, then they might be able to race Red Bull to a potential win.
And if we talk about Ferrari, they have struggled and they've admitted they're behind. Today, frustrating for Alonso, again, just these short little bursts.
Yeah, frustrating for Alonso. He did a good number of laps and gave all these people who are now invading the pit lane something to cheer about. But he said yesterday at the Nou Camp, you know, we are behind, we are suffering, don't expect us to be anywhere challenging for wins at the early part of the season. So he's given that message loud and clear to these Spanish fans that Ferrari are going to be playing catch-up at the beginning of the season.
And what about the other winners and losers from this week of testing?
I think the winners are really Red Bull and McLaren, and specifically the Lotus Renault team. They have a nicely balanced car, it's easy to drive. Kimi Raikkonen didn't have a particularly good race run today, but his teammate Romain Grosjean has proved that actually it's basically a good car. Also in the midfield, the Sauber team seems to be getting on quite well. The Williams team, nice to see them back in action. And also from the midfield, Caterham team seems to be quite good. Bad week for Marussia, for HRT, the little teams didn't manage to make it to these tests at all. And really the bad one really has to be for Ferrari. They've had to reverse down a path of development with their exhausts. It's set them back, it's made them start almost from scratch, and they go for Melbourne ready for the first race, but with a mountain to climb in terms of whether they can win a race early on.
All right, Ted, thank you very much. Thank you for that. And as you can see, the fans are invading the pit lane here. There'll be no more cars out on the track. The next time we see these cars will be in practice in Melbourne in just under 2 weeks' time at the start of the 2012 season.
Formula One now, and to the latest from the final day of testing in Barcelona. Current world champion Sebastian Vettel says it's difficult to know the state of any car until the first race, which is in Melbourne in 2 weeks' time.
The final day of the final testing session, and while others took their cars to the track in the morning, the Red Bull garage doors were closed as they suffered not one but two problems.
So far not so good, because obviously we'd love to be on the circuit more, but this morning I had an issue with the front wing. I went off track and broke the front wing, so had to come in, and then took quite a while to get back out, and then just before lunch we suffered a problem with the gearbox.
While Vettel could talk about Red Bull's issues, Ferrari weren't letting their drivers speak about anything, as they admitted suffering a setback due to having to bring a new exhaust to this final test.
It is very difficult now to assess exactly where every team is compared to each other. And we know very well how much the drivers' words can be emphasized in a way or another.
Red Bull did manage to get out for the final 10 minutes of the day, and there's clearly more to come. While Lewis Hamilton managed 115 laps in the McLaren.
So that's it. That is the last car to go back in the garage here at the Circuit de Catalunya. It's the Ferrari with Fernando Alonso driving today, and Ferrari have had their problems bringing that new exhaust to this final test, but the fans cheer as they have done all day for the Spanish driver, and as they wheel that back into the garage. That is the last time these Formula One cars will be on a track until they get to Melbourne. That's the next job. They're heading down to Melbourne after today, and that is it. They've done all the testing they can do. The lap times, well, what do they really mean? We'll only find out on the grid in Melbourne.
You never really know where you are until you get to Melbourne, and everyone, puts their pants down and show, and you can see what they've got, and you show what you've got in qualifying. So, and I think until then we still won't know.
The teams now pack up and head to Australia. Ferrari will be hoping they have more in their locker than they've been able to show, while Lotus will be hoping that topping the lap times 3 days out of 4 this week will be a sign of things to come. Rachel Brooks, Sky Sports, Barcelona.